Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Mega Man Network Transmission. In the last part, we took care of the old area and fought off Swordman, getting us link code X, so now we can go use that to get past the security cube just below the transport to his level. Before we do that though, as usual, grab an unlocker or two, you're gonna want them coming up. Also, as usual, between parts, I grinded up to a max amount of Swordman chips, and I think I also got a lot of his Sonic Blade. If there's any Navi chips you really do want to get up to max that are specifically their weapon chips outside of like Ice Slasher, because I like that one a lot myself, it is Swordman's and the next two Navis, because those tie into a program advance with each other, and it's not awful. I don't like it myself too much, but it's got some good uses here and there, specifically for very specific enemies down the line. So as I mentioned last time, the structure of this part of the game always kind of bothers me, because it's a lot of jack into Global Area 3 from Land's house. Go to the nearest stage in the top right, beat it, come back into Global Area 3, and then open the next security cube, and there's just enough tedium with how much back and forth that is to this area specifically that it starts to kind of annoy me, even if it is ultimately very quick. And I do also kind of get it because, as we've already seen, this does connect to a different area in the Undernet eventually from that one NPC we talked to earlier. I just wish maybe they could have done a thing where you could just transport directly into the levels from the world map instead of having to go through Global Area 3 every time. With that though, welcome to the strange gravity area. This area, my processes slow down and speed up depending on the place. Is it dangerous? Well, it's not all that dangerous, but it may affect my actions. How? Well, for instance, it may change my vertical facing. So this is an area with abnormal gravity, huh? Be careful. So they just covered the brass tacks of this level pretty well there. This is a gravity-themed level, and gee, I wonder who could be the boss of a Mega Man level themed entirely around gravity. I can't tell. The main gimmick of choice for at least the first computer here is these platforms that I'm on right now, gravity platforms. Whenever you're on ones with a purple top, your gravity is doubled, so you can only jump half as high. Thankfully, there's very few instances where the platforming around here gets dickish with the gravity. In fact, if anything, I think this is one of the best designed levels in the game with its actual mechanic. There are also yellow gravity tiles that I believe, I forget if it's triple or quadruple your gravity, so you can only basically do super short hops. What's really helpful about this area, though, is that there are a lot of very good battle chips in it. We've already seen Canodum and Metar 3s that have M-Cannon and Dino Wave specifically, but we also got Hammer Joes here, returning for the first time since Mega Man 3, borrowing some of the Game Boy games if memory serves. And you can actually hit them in all periods in this one, just as long as you're not actively hitting their hammer. But they have the Cannonball and the Hammer battle chip. That is a little bit of a strange battle chip in this game compared to what you might be used to in other battle networks. I think specifically 2 and 3 that's in. Where in those games you're using like a sledgehammer to slam the ground and do damage. In this, you're using one of those throwing hammers that are from, I think, a specific sport. It's closer to just throwing a flail, essentially. But we also got Sparky 2s here, in case you didn't get the Satellite 2 battle chip back in Elecman stage. The big thing is, between this stage and the next, I do come back here and farm up to max M-Cannons and Dino Waves. Dino Waves are going to replace the Sonic Waves in my folder. But I am going to have all 3 of the chips that are cannon-based at max. So cannon, high cannon, and M-Cannons are all going to be in my folder at once. Because for one thing, that's a very good program advance they've already brought up in the email. But for another, they're just a really good source of damage. Cannons maybe not so much at this point, but high cannon and M-Cannons are like universally good. Now that we're in Strange Gravity Area 2, this is where we start getting the yellow gravity platforms that quadruple your gravity. This might look a little stressful, but not for nothing. Mega Man's jump arc in this game feels great to control, and you can cover a lot of ground with it, so it's actively not that stressful. If anything, I think the double gravity sections are harder than the quadruple gravity. But now that we're in this section, we're starting to get to the point where we're getting an old mechanic from Mega Man 5, gravity swapping based off the arrows in the background. The biggest hurdle, I think, in getting used to these particular mechanics are observing the platforming around you before you go to swap gravity, because when you swap, your altitude when you swap sticks for a second before you actively start falling or rising again, depending on which direction gravity's going. But there's times where you might want to swap low into the, well, I guess quote-unquote low into where the swapper is, because then you can fall onto the next platform, or high to avoid a bottomless pit right next to you. And that can take some getting used to. A good instance is actually right here. I've had several times when I was a kid where I would just try to kind of gun it through this particular section here when it's safer just to get onto the ceiling and then walk to the right to get that green mystery data. Whereas you want to jump there because otherwise you're probably going to take that death. As for new enemies in this section, we got B-Tank 3s that I just killed. They have Little Bomb, Big Bomb, and Cross Bomb. Big Bomb there is the new battle chip you're looking for them, which is essentially, to use Battle terms, it's a spreader ranged bomb, so it's just a gigantic explosion, which, hey, nice to have. I think we've seen Mega Bunnies before, but there's also, towards the end here, our next version of a Megalian. These are Megaman.EXE. They have a Heat Aura battle chip, as well as a Fire Elemental Aura on them, period. Which means you need either a water battle chip or something that just does over 100 damage to get it. I don't think they actually have much more, if more HP than the other one, though. Actually, let me look into that really quick. Megalian Aquas have 100, Megaman.EXE's and this have 150. Okay, so they are stronger still. If and when you go for the Aura battle chips, I don't recommend fighting them here in the stages we've seen them in thus far, because some of their platform positions are a little awkward for grabbing the battle chip and doing heavy damage very quickly. I'd recommend waiting for a few stages from now where you can fight all three of them even in much better positions. But hey, at least I got the Fire Aura there. Thank you, Cold Punch. And after that, Megalian, we're actually at the end of the stage, so it's time for us to do some speed up in order to get ourselves a better setup for the boss fight. And this is one where your chip setup can matter a lot, because I think out of all the bosses in the game, this is the one that's literally the hardest to damage, even with the ones that actively do a counterattack before you can hit them kind of deals going on. Like, yes, Brightman's more annoying to hit, but this one's harder to literally aim at. But we got a good enough setup here. Color Man's gonna help out a lot here. Tree Bombs also are pretty good. And hey, got high cannons, and that's a good 80 damage. So let's also take another speed up right here to get my MP back up, and then we'll be heading in for a boss fight that I like the idea of and it has worked in other games. Just this one feels a little iffy with its hit detection here and there, by either for you hitting it or it hitting you, especially.
Gravityman 起動排除を開始します。
Intruder alert. Warning. Warning. What's this? A Navi? Looks like its AI level is really low, but its chassis has something... Be careful. He may be upgraded just like Swordman. Gravityman will now exterminate the intruder. Here he comes. Megaman. Battle routine set. Execute. So a big thing with Gravityman's fight is you can hold the jump button to swap from the ceiling to the floor and vice versa, and you're going to want to do that because the ceiling is the easiest way to hit his actual weak point, which is his face and the space right behind it. Meanwhile, his hands are rotating to act as shields for your charge shot, or to just hit you outright while he does one of his two actual attacks. One is Gravity Hold, which is a small projectile that homes in on you, and he spawns more and more than the lower his health gets, to the point where I think he can have up to 4 on screen at a time. And another one is he turns into a black hole, basically, and sucks you in towards the right for mass damage. That one especially can really hurt. Be careful of that. Hitting his actual weak point can be rough, but Navi chips like Color Man do go a long way to help hit him. That was rough, Mega Man. I can't believe it. Where did he get that function? What's wrong, Mega Man? Are you okay? No problem. I'm alright. Let's go. If we follow the broken link that Navi was guarding, I bet it'll take us to the 0 account. Okay, but if it gets really dangerous, we jack out. Got it. Let's follow the new link. And now we got link code Y. You see what I mean about them kind of swapping between calling it just 0 account and the 0 account? This game's script really needed a proofread. Also, for Gravityman's weapon chip, we got Gravity Hold, which actually isn't that bad. It's a very slow-moving projectile across the screen, and it only does 20 damage on the tin, but it hits enemies multiple times in a row, for like very crowded hallways, it's not a bad crowd control option. So, you may have also noticed, next to the Gutsman figurine in Land's room, there's now a little box that looks like a deck box filled with battle chips. That's exactly what it is. That, to my knowledge, doesn't indicate a percentage on the library. I believe that indicates just the literal number of battle chips you have. So, like, every single extra use counts as an extra battle chip there. They do that, I think, twice in the game before you max out. Which is kind of weird, but it's nice to have that visual representation of, oh, we have way too many chips. If anything, I'm kind of surprised they didn't, like, use that to kind of indicate, like, your library completion in the game, because that would have been a nice way to visually indicate it without having the title screen stars to work with in this one, because those just don't exist at all. I don't even think it does anything on your save file on the save screen now that I think about it. If you max out the library, just like, hey, you got 137 out of 137. Nice job. No shinies. For now, though, we're refining Gravityman in order to get his battle chip, which is probably my least favorite Navi chip in the game, honestly. Because on the tin, it does a very low amount of damage. I think it actually does 20, just like Gravity Hold. But the thing is with it, it can instant kill smaller enemies. Now, I forget what the game classifies as smaller enemies. I forget if it's like literally they are smaller statures like Metars and all that, or if it's lower leveled enemies compared to your actual level on the Mega Man screen. Either way, by endgame, it's only really useful in stages you're revisiting, so I can't really recommend it that much besides library completion. Nice card art, though. In fact, in general, the battleship art in this game is really good, although you can see a little bit of crunchiness on the art they are bringing in from the GBA games, because there's like a lot of JPEG artifacting going on in some of them. Although that's more obvious if you're playing the game on a LCD screen up or on an emulator than on the actual GameCube on a CRT TV. The Gravityman stage also kind of showcases this game has very inconsistent stage lengths, and part of that is because the later you get into the game, the more damaging your folder can be, so enemies stand less of a chance. But also some stages are just much shorter in terms of getting through them than others, especially if you're not going for all the items along the way. At this point, though, we're actually going to start cutting into Global Area 3 because we don't need to see that Spiky 3 over and over again. Now we can use the link code Y, get past this, and now we have, get this, another teleporter with a link cube right beneath it. I like this level, not so much for its mechanic, even though it is a favorite mechanic of mine in the Mega Man games, more so for its music. I adore this song. What the? My processes are really fast here. Mega Man, are you okay? The influence of the Zero virus isn't completely gone, but still. I can hold out a little longer here. What great luck! Lan, with processing this fast? A little jump will take me really high, probably. In other words, this is a no-gravity area. Be careful when you jump. So, in here we have the traditional water and space level mechanics from classic Mega Man, where your jump height is essentially doubled. They are going to be a little tricksy with this, and that there's going to be a lot of times where there's spikes above you now you need to be aware of. But honestly, this is one of my favorite stages in the game once again. It's weird. As much as I dislike this portion of the game structurally with jacking in and out of Global Area 3 over and over again, some of the strongest levels in the game are here. You just have to get to them in the first place, which, again, doesn't even take that long anyway, so feels like I might be making a mountain out of a molehill in that case. Do got some new enemies here, though. We got the third Megalian. This is the Megalian Wood. They got a Wood-type aura, so they, of course, drop that as a battle chip. They got 200 HP, so they're actually a little bit chunky to get through. But if you just bring in some fire chips like Fireman, you could probably melt them down pretty quickly. What's really notable about this stage is that every single Yort in the game is here. The way they work in this game is they patrol vertically just like the Megalians, and if they're about perpendicular with you, they'll just fire their yo-yo at you, and it can do a couple of hits of damage. That's kind of notable. The yo-yo battle chips are favorites of mine in BN2 if I get them early enough before the final boss, or in BN3, but here in Network Transmission, they're just kind of okay. Not too bad, but there's better. Additionally, we also got Sparky 3s here in the first area, so if you get the Satellite 3 chip, you can get that through the library. And we got Gabual 3s that have the Metal Body battle chip, which is theoretically the best version of Stone Body, but again, I don't really like those chips to begin with. The Yurts are here in No Gravity Area 1 as well, which is the Yort 2s. The level 3 of them isn't until the second area. And notably, you can get to the second area pretty quickly here if you just want to skip all this stuff to the side, because you can just do some very clever use of double jump to reach it very quickly. Because this is like the first part of Old Area where you're going all the way to the right, then curve back to the left. You can just skip that if you know where to jump. Which in that regard, I do like how double jump works in this game's mobility, where if you know level design, you can get through it very quickly. I just wish there were more things that could do that, and again, that kind of gets into something I wish this game was more so than it actually is. But I'll save that specific talk for a very particular level that's a little slower paced to begin with. Coming up on a particularly good battle chip, by the way, that I forget if I've mentioned yet, if I've already got one. This is Gold Fist. It's the strongest of the Fist-type chips. And it's not a bad thing to have in your folder, even if you only have 1 or 2 uses of it, because its damage is just that good against boss fights. And thus, we already have access to No Gravity Area 2. It's no good. My processes are slowing down again. Dang! This area is no good, too. Alright, jack out. Lan, Megaman. Dad, Megaman is... Relax, I just finished my analysis of the Zero virus. I'm sending you a vaccine, so install it. Megaman. Alright, will do. Installing the vaccine program. How do you feel? Great. I'm back to normal. You did it, Dad. What a relief. That'll take care of the Zero virus, too. Well, not really. All I've done is eradicate the current Zero virus. Current? I only just figured this out after analyzing the Zero virus. Apparently, the Zero virus is a type of virus that evolves with time. This means that even with the current vaccine, new versions of the Zero virus will still spread from the Zero count throughout all cyber worlds. That's horrible. Fortunately, that Navi hacking program lacks this evolution capability. It looks like the cyber worlds are back to normal for now, but unless we defeat the main Zero virus, we'll be back at square one. Let's go, Lan. We've come this far. The Zero count must be close. Indeed. So there is 2 new enemies here in No Gravity Area 3. One is towards the end, it's a Yart, which is the third of the Yo-Yo Trinity. But there's also a mini-boss we'll talk to when we reach it. Now, something I do kind of funny about this particular game is what it's sort of released close enough to that it's kind of funny because it means they probably were in development at least somewhat concurrently. This game, in terms of its original release date from memory, is early 2003, but in mid-2004, Megaman.EXE released an RPG. So that means, at least for a certain time period, there was a platformer for the RPG series and an RPG for the platformer series in development at the same time. They just kind of traded places for a while. And not gonna lie, I like it when games actually do that. I always wished we got a follow-up to Command Mission, just because I think there's so much potential in what that game is that the original game doesn't exactly really hit in some regards. I'll cover that more in detail when I eventually cover Command Mission. And I would have loved to see if they could expand and refine on that. And honestly, I would have loved to even see a sequel to Network Transmission that refined a lot of things, and maybe even slightly shifted the genre in a certain direction that I'll talk about on my thoughts in that specific level I slightly mentioned earlier. Although, technically speaking, I guess in that regard, this is an expansion on the other Mega Man Battle Network platformer that I don't even think was released in the West, if memory serves. It was on the Wonder Swan color, and I'll cover it at some point because for some reason I have the inkling to just do every Mega Man game at some point, sometimes multiple times. Also, just then, that section with the rotating platforms, that is the top section of this particular area. The spikes with the cyber bars is the bottom, so if you just stay on the platforms towards the left, you can come over here, and hey, you get easy access to the Yart. Although the platform, the routes connect right there. And now time for the mini-boss. This is a big Yart. It's a Gradius boss, almost very literally. The main body can only be damaged, and the green dot between the 2 halves of the scissors of sorts, I guess the way I'll describe that. The main body will fire out 2 missiles that'll home in on you at a time, and you can easily just kind of bait them around in a circle or destroy them if you want to, but you can't get too close to the main body because of the yo-yos literally rotating around it. Not the hardest mini-boss, and even then, things like Color Man can easily pierce through any defenses it has because of how the ball can clip through things, but be careful all the same. Fights like this are why I still have some chips like Shotgun in my folder, because it gives me an easy way to be a little off with my aim and still potentially hit targets. Like, even if I miss the front shot of the shotgun, the blow backwards that it has might still actually damage the thing. And really, I do like that they give chips sort of like that are kind of useless in the mainline games after like the first 2 hours kind of some new life in that regard to the platformer. It's just that there's times where I wish they actually had better versions of those chips to do just that. With that said, we're already at the boss fight, so that means it's once again time for us to kind of sit still and get a certain chip folder going. This is a fight I would recommend staying at a distance during at all costs. Unless you're going for specifically something like Life Sword 3 to get one super solid close range shot in. In fact, you might notice by now, I tend to have a couple of different main setups for boss fights around this point. I'll be using like Life Sword 3, Ice Slasher, Mega Cannon, or some other elemental attacks that depend on what the boss itself is. you can have a pretty consistent boss setup for the first time against most bosses in this game, past, I'd say, the halfway point of the game. Which I guess we're a little past the halfway point, actually, at this point. There's technically 4 or 5 levels left at this point. It's just that there's a little more to the game than that for reasons. Also, I really do not recommend you have anything that's ground-focused for this fight unless it's got some high vertical range on top of that. Things like Gutsman are just not gonna come in handy here at all, but Guts Shoot potentially could. So let's get our MP back up, and it's time for us to hit up the boss fight, who might be looking a little familiar already. Heh, I can't believe a Navi made it this far. Huh? Who are you? Starman. Ah, that Navi again. You sure are persistent. So you were the criminal all along. Criminal? What criminal? You're the one who spread the Zero virus in the Navi hacking program. Dad said the same guy did both of those things. No, the guy operating you is the criminal. Operator, you say? Whatever. I'll still do the same thing. No one who approaches Zero can go home again in one piece. Zero? Is that the source of the Zero virus? That's for me to know. Now enough talk already. Heh, you don't know who you're messing with. Megaman, battle routine set. Execute. Starman can be troublesome because he has a bit of a counterattack that he does inconsistently, where he'll sometimes just teleport right as you shoot him and rain down meteors on the ground, and the further you get into his health bar, the more he rains down to the point where it covers most of the field and it's kind of hard to dodge. And he's also got his star arrow attack, where he'll spawn 8 arrows that go in the cardinal and intercardinal directions around him. That is pretty easy to dodge in comparison. The big thing is just trying to do enough damage quickly so you don't get a lot of them large meteor showers raining down on you. But otherwise, this isn't too bad. And his weapon chip's actually that very star arrow attack, which is a version of that arrow attack from, I think that was Megaman 4? And you can jump on it to even be a platform. Ah, so you're the Blue Navi who smashed World 3. No wonder you beat me. But I still don't know what that guy's trying to do. What did you say? What guy? I think that's the first Navi we actually outright deleted, too. Poor loser. Alright, Mega Man, let's keep going. Let's go into the Zero account and find the main Zero virus. You got it. I wonder what Starman was talking about there at the end. And of course, we get link code Z. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 11, we're going to go quickly refight Starman for one thing to get his Navi chip, and then head on towards the Zero account, I guess. See you guys then.